Guide. Write Common Cause, Box 7238, Washington, D.C. We're watching. You watch too.
President Carter is hopeful the Congress will not override his veto, which canceled plans for a nuclear aircraft carrier he says would be a sitting duck in wartime. But Mr. Carter is ready to provide extra legislation to restore cuts and maybe throw in a small carrier next year. Good morning, I'm Jeff Rouse reporting on KBYU-FM. Bob Kaler has more from the Pentagon.
President Carter is given a good chance of making his veto of the $37 billion military authorization bill stick. But some congressional hardliners will fight, and there's no assurance the lawmakers will meet all Mr. Carter's demands for increased combat readiness. A senior defense official says that in addition to removing the $2 billion supercarrier Mr. Carter rejected, the president wants cuts of weapons and ammunition restored. The official concedes this may be too much to expect and says, if necessary, the administration will send extra legislation to the Hill to cover those items. As a sweetener, he also says the president is prepared to ask for a smaller, conventional aircraft carrier next year. Bob Kaler at the Pentagon.
With Memphis police and firefighters both locked in an impasse with the city over the length of a new contract, union leaders are preparing for a contempt of court hearing today as the strike moves into its second week. The question of wage hikes apparently has been settled, but union officials say talks with the city are at a deadlock over their demand for a one-year contract. Mayor Wyeth Chandler has refused to agree on anything less than a two-year contract. In their court appearance today, leaders of the Memphis Police Association and firefighters locals could face fines and jail sentences for ignoring court orders to return to work. Vice President Mondale today announced a settlement in the congressional deadlock on natural gas deregulation. He said the chances are now excellent for passage of a national energy plan this year. The breakthrough came during a White House meeting last night between President Carter and two key senators and two House members. Another opinion poll on the popularity of President Carter gives him some points instead of taking them away. The latest Harris survey says 67% of those polled agreed with the president's policy of coming down hard on the Russians for treatment of dissidents. But meanwhile, firefighters in Las Vegas have withdrawn their union's support of the president. Steve Herman has the report.
Some 1,000 delegates to the group's annual convention in Las Vegas have accepted a compromise resolution from a committee which considered a declaration not to support Carter for re-election in 1980. Firefighters had endorsed Carter in 1976. The withdrawal of support came on the heels of the president's veto June 20th of a bill which would have reduced the work week for federal firefighters from the current 72 hours to 56 hours. A union spokesman says the organization's support for Carter in the last presidential election was based upon a verbal commitment by Carter to IAFF President W. Howard McClellan that the chief executive would sign a shorter work week bill if it cleared Congress. Steve Herman, Las Vegas.
The Environmental Protection Agency has proposed a strict new pollution standard for Kennecott Copper's Magnus smelter, which the mining company terms unnecessary, unreasonable, and unlawful. Utah Copper Division Manager Robert Pratt says the company intends to oppose the regulations, which would require Kennecott to build additional pollution control equipment at the smelter to catch sulfur dioxide emissions. The Utah Public Service Commission has approved a deal between Utah Power and Light Company and state officials that will hike power rates just over 13% immediately. The increase is half of what Utah Power asked for in April. The power company agreed to chop its request from $65 million to $35 million per year in exchange for immediate action by the PSC. A Ralph Nader research group says Utah is one of many states having no legal means to get patient medical records. Nader wants to see federal legislation allowing patients to examine their medical histories. Utah Valley Hospital spokesman Jerry Sorensen says that's not a problem in Utah.
The physician and the patient have immediate access to all and any information. Attorneys and insurance companies with proper authorization which means written consent from the patient.
Sorensen says as far as he knows, there has never been a problem of that sort here in Utah. President Carter this morning called his top national security advisors to the White House to prepare for the Mideast summit at Camp David next month. Carter apparently wants to have some ideas of his own to put forward in case the talks between Egypt and Israel remain deadlocked. Later today, Carter leaves Washington for a 2-week vacation. On Wall Street yesterday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished up 554 at 900.12. Volume on the big board, 45,270,000 shares. Along the Wasatch Front today, partly cloudy with a chance of showers. The high today should be about 75 degrees. At 6 minutes past 8, it's 50 degrees. That's 10 degrees Celsius. At the Fine Arts Station, I'm Jeff Rouse, KBYU-FM News.
Would you trade one weekend a month and a couple weeks a year for extra income?